guys, it's Katie. Today I'm making some eggplant curry for dinner. So I thought I would show you how to make this. This recipe is actually already online. It's on all recipes. I make it a little bit different, but I'll link it down below if you want to see the original recipe. So I have everything I think I need set out. I'm using this kind of eggplant, the long skinny Asian ones. I like them the best. And I just cut the top off like that. Sometimes on the blossom end down here on the bottom it might need to be trimmed too if it's looking a little bit, I don't know, weird. But usually I just cut this top off. Sometimes up underneath this is, I think it's called a calyx. I'm not very good at plant parts. But sometimes up underneath there it can be kind of fibrous. So I used to pull this back to try to get as much as possible because, you know, I don't like food waste. But really it's not worth it because you're ending up cutting, you know, you're saving part of the vegetable that's not even that good. So it's kind of like trimming the bottom of the asparagus. You just gotta do it, even if it's like a full inch or more of what seems to be perfectly good vegetable matter. So I'm not sure how much eggplant this is. The recipe calls for 1 1/4 pounds. This is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 of these pretty decent size Asian eggplants. I usually double up vegetables on pretty much everything, so I like to have this nice and hearty. And I just cut it into chunks. This one is a little bit wider at the bottom, so I cut it in half. Oops. But just little bite-sized pieces, whatever works well for you. Now, I also have an onion. The recipe calls for 2 onions, but this is pretty large, so I'm just going to use 1. And this recipe, it calls for frying all this eggplant in oil, removing it, and then continuing on. I don't do that. It just seems like extra oil to me. The eggplant cooks perfectly fine in the sort of sauce that we're going to make. So just doing a kind of a rough chop on this onion. And I'll get that in the pan. Move you over a little bit. I'll get that in the pan with a little bit of oil. I'm going to use coconut oil. This recipe has coconut milk in it, so coconut oil works perfectly. So get that started. Some salt and pepper to get that started. And while that's cooking, I'm going to get my spices ready. When you put seeds in the oil, it's good to put them straight in the oil, seeds and ground spices and stuff like that, and kind of toast them a little bit, but you have to move fast. So I like to have them all measured out. And I'm just going to guesstimate here. The written recipe calls for half a teaspoon of cumin seeds. There. And it calls for half a teaspoon of fenugreek seeds, which I don't have, so I don't add them. It calls for half a teaspoon of onion seeds. I found these recently. This is what it looks like. I have made this recipe many, many times before I found these, and it, you know, this is a really good recipe. Like I've made this with like half of these spices, and it's still really delicious. So if you don't have some of these things, that's fine. It calls for garlic. And ginger, it calls for half an inch of ginger minced. I'll just use my microplane. Calls for 1 chili, I just use jalapeno. And I'm going to seed mine since I'm feeding a toddler, but leave the seeds in if you want. half a teaspoon of sesame seeds. It calls for coriander powder, but I'm going to use coriander seeds. Turmeric. And I think that's all the spices. I'll get this out of the way. It calls for chili powder, but I'm not going to add that just so it doesn't get too spicy. And then the only other thing is some tomato puree. I just used tomato paste, so it calls for a 1/4 cup of tomato puree, so I use half of that amount of tomato paste and then just add a splash of water. So 2 tablespoons of tomato paste. So my onions are getting a little bit too brown. And turn them down a little bit. It might have been too late. I'm going to go ahead and add these other aromatics, the jalapeno, garlic, and ginger. Alright, so now I'll throw in the seeds. Probably should be a little bit more oil, especially for toasting seeds as opposed to ground spices. Ground spices, you don't need that much oil. But for seeds, the way I've seen recipes, they kind of deep fry them. I'm just not going to add that much oil, just because the coconut cream that I'm using is going to be plenty fattening, even for a veggie dish. So after those get toasted for just 30 seconds, I'm going to go ahead and add some water to deglaze that so that they don't burn. Burnt spices taste bitter, and there's nothing you can do to fix your dish once you get to that point. So now I'll just go ahead and throw in the eggplant. I hope this all fits in my pan. It's going to cook down, but oh, it's all going to fit. Alright, so I'm going to add 2 tablespoons of tomato paste. I'll go ahead and put it here. Mix it with some water so it's easier to mix in. Especially since I don't have so much room to stir in this pot right yet. So I'll put that in now. So we'll see how stubborn I am to see if I ever get a bigger pot or if I just fight with this one the whole time. And really the only last ingredient aside from cilantro garnish is, it calls for a 1/2 cup of coconut milk. I add quite a bit more than that. And I don't use coconut milk, I'm using coconut cream. So I'll just have to dilute that down, but buying coconut cream, it's a lot easier to find without a lot of additives. So this is really thin for coconut cream, so I might not even have to add any water. All right. And then I just need to carefully stir this to get everything incorporated, and then it just needs to simmer until the eggplant is tender, so that should take, I don't know, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, and you'll see the color change on the eggplant. And the texture, of course, will get softer. And then one last thing I haven't added since the very beginning is some salt. I'll make sure I put a good amount of salt for all of that eggplant. And you just taste it at the end, but anyway, I'm serving this with rice. I already have my rice here, some brown rice. So Just finishing steaming up. And I got a bunch of spinach that's going bad faster than I'm using it, so I bought it for something for this weekend, but I don't think it's going to last till this weekend, so I'm thinking I might wash that up and put that in too, but this pot's already at capacity, so I'll put that in at the very end anyway, so hopefully it cooks down enough to make room for that. Especially since I don't have cilantro, so it'll be a nice green color to add to it. Alright. So here is what it looks like when the eggplant is nice and tender. See how it cooks down, and my pan wasn't too small. I knew what I was doing from the beginning. So now I have this fresh spinach. I guess I'll use all of it. We'll see. Finally got the food to fit in the pan, and now I'm adding more, but this is just for a few seconds to wilt down. And then we can serve it up to eat. Alright, so that's what it looks like when it's all done. Let's plate it up. Yum! Alright, thanks for watching. I'll see you guys next time. Bye!